I've had lots of different jobs, and they all have really different experiences. I work in a museum. It's the lively atmosphere that keeps me going. And helps me ignore the countless years of self-loathing. There's nothing more satisfying than spending your days with screaming children and old relics. It's like a family reunion, except it's every day. Apart from the days where it's quiet, those are the days I like most, because those are the days where I get to write my novel. It's about a museum worker who goes rogue. He starts stealing wax figurines of famous historical figures and selling them on to feed his cocaine addiction. It's called Disappointment at Lunchtime. It's based on a true story. There's something interesting about working in a building full of things more important and valuable than you. Has an interesting effect on your self-esteem. It crushes it. A lot of my colleagues' wives leave them. My colleague Gordon, his wife left him recently, and the other day I provoked him because I was bored and had just finished my Sudoku. He got into a flying rage and started smashing up the Egyptian exhibit. He broke his hand on a sarcophagus. He was on acid at the time, and apparently had a conversation with Tutankhamun about the suicide rates of museum workers. Gordon doesn't work there anymore. And neither do I. I now work in retail. It's the lively atmosphere that keeps me going. And helps me ignore the countless years of self-loathing. There's nothing more satisfying than spending your days with screaming children and miserable men in suits. It's like a family reunion, except it's every day. Apart from the days where it's quiet, those are the days I like most, because those are the days where I get to write my novel. It's about a retail worker who goes rogue and starts stealing plasma TVs and selling them on the mean streets of Worthing to feed her heroin habits. It's called Disappointment at Tea Time, and it's a sequel, but it's not as good as the original. There's something interesting about working in a building full of things more expensive than you value your life. There's an interesting effect on your self-esteem. It crushes it. A lot of my colleagues' husbands leave them. My colleague Jordan, her husband left her recently. And the other day, I provoked her because I was bored and just finished my Sudoku on intermediate difficulty. She got into a flying rage and started tearing up the children's clothing section. Apparently, she was on acid, LSD even at the time, and had a conversation with an elf about how she's an ugly crier. And those eyebrows just don't go. Jordan doesn't work there anymore and is pending a court summons for assaulting a child. Like me, I don't work there anymore and I'm pending a court summons for assaulting a child. I now work in a library. That keeps me going. And helps me ignore there's nothing more satisfying than spending your days with silently screaming kids and unbelievable stories. Except it's every day, because my family like to visit the library a lot. Apart from the days where it's quiet, which is most days because it's a library. Because those are the days. It's about a library worker that starts stealing rare copies of works of Shakespeare and selling them on the moon to feed their drug addiction. It's called At Brunch Time. And is a prequel and should be seen as a standalone piece in itself, but because there are 7 pages that references the original, it will never be seen from the work of art it truly is, much like the film Prometheus. There's something interesting about working. It has an interesting effect on your self-esteem. A lot of my colleagues' pets. My colleague, Greg! His dog left him. And the other day, because I had just finished my crossword, he got into and started burning copies of children's books based around dogs. Woof, Spot the Dog, something else. On magic mushrooms at the time, and apparently Mog the Forgetful Cat, about the social ineptity of 20-something-year-old library workers. Greg! Neither do I. I now work in a chemist. Lively atmosphere, self-loathing, satisfying, screaming, kids, quiet, mouse, novel, disappointment, rogue. I now work in a library, in a hospital, and I still do.